Okay, guys, today we are introducing you to Bhairava Sadhaka, badass tantric practitioner and a devotee of Shiva and Kali. Thank you, Bhairava, and we are glad to have you on the show. Are we on the line?
I can hear you. Yeah, I'm just trying to turn you up a little bit here. Um, trying to turn up your voice. It's okay. I'll have to listen in, Ken. So, can you hear
Okay,
me?
yes, I can hear you. So, Bhairava, can you tell us what is? Can you like turn on your camera so people can see you, bro? Because like your camera is off.
My camera is off.
Yes.
According to mine, my camera is on.
For whatever reason it turned off. Can you like turn it on enough? Maybe it will. Okay, it's on now. It's on now. Okay, bro. So today we introduce you Bhairava Sadhaka, Bada Shiva devotee and Kali devotee. Okay. Can you tell us Bhairava Sadhaka how you started practicing your sadhana, your spiritual path?
From years and years of doing the Wama Marga practices, it inevitably led me to some person when I was young. I was homeless. I lived outside, and it led me to some person who was from the Natha Sampradaya, and he kind of planted seeds of Shaivism within me at this age, and then they came to fruition more after I moved to the Arctic. Spent time in solitude here, and naturally, I came into this path of trica Shaivism, and I've been firmly rooted in this path for a few years now, after half a life of doing the Vamamarga practices.
Okay. So basically, can you tell us, your life in the Arctic? Can you talk about your life in the Arctic, like how it influenced your spiritual practice?
Well, being in the Arctic, it's very cold, it's isolated, and it's very dark for half of the year. And then we have sunlight for half of the year. So this environment is very extreme. And there is immense shakti, immense power, which is moving through the world. And I believe that these polar regions are epicenters of this.
Okay, so can you tell us more about the subject of this video, which is Bhairava, the tantric dark form of Lord Shiva, who brings liberation? So can we talk about Bhairava for a while?
To speak about Bhairava, Bhairava is for us in our tradition, everything is very internal. Parabhairava is not so much a murti or rupa or a form. Parabhairava is a state. And this state of awareness is when the individuality has become one with universality. So when individual being merges as one with universal being, this is the state of Parabhairava.
Okay, so can you tell us more about that state of Parabhairava and a concept
The
of
state
Bhairava in Shaivism?
is something that is experienced. It is samavesha, absorption with the universal being. It is hard to speak of this state because the words are unable to capture this experience. But when one has entered into the state of Parabhairava, Supreme Bhairava, then this is some very intense form of shaktipata of grace, and he can no longer revert back to his old ways. He is Jivan Mukta. He becomes uh, both individual and universal simultaneously. He keeps his embodied form, but he also becomes one with the universal being, Paramashiva.
Okay, so can you tell us like how one gradually can reach that state of Parabhairava slash oneness? What is asked of the devotee of the sadhaka?
Firstly, it's grace, shaktipata. If one needs Lord Shiva, Paramashiva, the supreme element of this universe, needs to pour his grace or shower his Hatha Shaktipata, violent Shaktipata. It drags him onto this path against his will, even similarly to a river drags something out into the ocean. The currents will drag it without it even wanting to go. This kind of Shaktipata, this grace, must unfold within the heart of the devotee. Through individual efforts, we can prepare ourselves to receive this grace, this Shaktipata, but without this grace, one can never attain the state of Parabhairava. So really, it is up to Swatantraya, the free will of Paramashiva.
Okay, so basically, I'm trying to translate what you said for the audience. If I am wrong, you can correct me. So basically, you believe or you claim in your philosophy of Kashmir Shaivism, your specific branch of it, that the thing which brings liberation or moksha is actually the grace of Paramashiva / Supreme Reality, and that without the grace of Supreme Reality, one cannot achieve liberation. So, can you define the grace of Supreme Reality? What it entails?
What is the grace of Lord Shiva?
Yes.
This grace is called Shaktipata, and it's a force which carries one into spiritual life, and it manifests in different levels. There's actually 27 different levels of Shaktipata as understood by the saints of our tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, but these are divided into 9 main levels of Shaktipata. The highest intensity of this grace is called Tivra Shaktipata. Tivra Shaktipata means super supreme grace, where this is so much grace which unfolds within the embodied being that he cannot maintain his body. At this point, this is so much grace, he's so overwhelmed, he leaves his body and he becomes one instantaneously with Paramashiva. Now, then beneath this is Tivra Madhya Shaktipata, supreme medium grace. Tivra Madhya Shaktipata, this kind of grace, the devotee, he becomes absolutely perfect in shastric knowledge, and he gains a deep longing and burning to transcend spiritually. However, this kind of grace, he maintains his body. So the devotee maintains his body in this kind of grace. And then there is the lower levels of grace. These higher levels, Tivra Shaktipata, Tivra Madhya Shaktipata, Tivra Manda Shaktipata, these not always require that of a guru. The guru becomes the universal element, Paramashiva. However, the lower forms of grace, like Madhya Tivra Shaktipata, medium superior grace, Madhya Shaktipata, intermediate medium grace, Madhya Manda Shaktipata, intermediate inferior grace, and then of course the lowest forms of grace, even lower than this, these may require a living master. So grace can unfold in different levels. Those in the lowest forms of grace, they may be interested in spiritual life, like Manda Tivra Shaktipata. This is inferior supreme grace. Manda Madhya Shaktipata, inferior medium grace. Manda Shaktipata, lowest inferior grace. These forms of grace, the devotee must absolutely come to a living master. And even with the push of a living master, they may not be able to advance as easily. But this is the beginning of their journey. So there's many different levels of grace. And without grace, then we have nothing. But there is a trick to this grace. The substance of Shaktipata is found from within. In these highest levels of grace, we can decide, based on awareness, we can administer our own Shaktipata, our own grace, if the bhakti and devotion is there. And actually, those who have intense effort to transcend spiritually, this alone is grace. This effort there is grace.
So I am trying to like understand everything you're saying and give it a proper respect. So if I am not wrong, shaktipata is a form of divine empowerment, divine inspiration, as you will, which basically results in the movement of the Kundalini Shakti to the higher levels. But also, the concept of grace in your philosophic understanding is basically a form of energy, right? Grace is a form of energy. It's a form of divine essence which is falling upon the devotee. And so,
Really, it's like divine amrita, nectar, love, bhakti. It's the unfolding of bhakti in the heart of the devotee, essentially.
yes. So we are at the same page. Yeah, we are at the same page.
So
So
everything
basically,
is centered around this shaktipata. And shaktipata exists here. Shaktipata exists here, 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 here. Shaktipata is this substance pervades everywhere. But it's up for the sadhaka to extract this and to use this to push themselves upwards. But even sometimes without this push, it's kind of like you have the candle, you have the incense, you have your flowers, you have all of the things to do puja with, your oil. However, you don't have a flame. You see, Shaktipata is like this flame. We need to have this grace derived from Paramashiva. So there is a system to how I want to unveil the basics of trica Shaivism. And I think that I need to start at the beginning so that people have an understanding of this tradition and the origin of this tradition. So can I begin to dispel this this knowledge?
yes, you can begin. You can begin.
So the birth of the Tantras, as you may or may not know, not you specifically, but anyone listening to this, there's 92 agamas. Agamas are transmissions of knowledge of Paramashiva unto Jiva, unto the individuals. This knowledge of the Agamas is divided into 3 different sections. There is Dvaita, or the Shaiva Agamas. There is the dualistic, non-dualistic Agamas, Beda, or the Rautra Agamas. And then there is the Bhairava Agamas, which are fully non-dual. To explain this more, there is a Murti, a Rupa, a form of Lord Shiva, which we address as Swachandanata, also known as Agoranata or Pashupati Shiva, who is symbolized by 5 heads. This 5-headed Shiva also has 18 arms. This 5-headed Shiva contains the knowledge of these agamic transmissions. These agamic transmissions have flowed out from these mouths, these 5 mouths of Lord Shiva. The first mouth of Lord Shiva is Sursti. Sursti is Brahma, creation. It is the force of creation. The next mouth of Lord Shiva is Stihiti. Stihiti is Vishnu. This is the force of preservation or maintenance. The next mouth of Lord Shiva is Samhara Rudra. This is dissolution, the dissolving element of this universe. Beyond these 3 processes of creation, maintenance, and dissolution exists 2 other actions of Paramashiva. This is Teradhana or Pidhana, which is ignorance, which is this divine element has hidden himself in his expansion, in his expanded forms within this universe, within our bodies. And in the final activity embodied by the 5th mouth of Lord Shiva is Anugraha. Anugraha means he reveals himself unto expansion unto the individual. He then reveals himself unto the individual. So this is the 5 activities of Paramashiva. So the first 10 agamas are the dualistic agamas, the Shaiva agamas. And these imply that there is separation between Jiva and Shiva. So there is separation between us as individuals and between the universal being. These agamas are 10 in number. These were spoken by one of the heads, one of the mouths of Swachendanata, 5-headed Shiva. Then next, the Rautra agamas. These are dualist, non-dualist teachings. These are 18 in total. These transmissions teach that, well, this is like the state where the sadhaka may have experienced a oneness with Paramashiva, but he still falls into individuality. So it is both separated and also union. So it is called Dvaita Advaita, or dualistic non-dualism. Next is the Bhairava agamas, which are 64 in number. And this is the heart of trica Kashmir Shaivism, it's the Bhairava agamas, because these transmissions are teaching there's absolutely no difference between individual being and universal being. And these agamic transmissions flowed out from all of the 5 mouths of Paramashiva simultaneously. So these teach that any amount of separation between individual being and universality is burned away. Individual is completely one with universality simultaneously. These 5 heads, 5 mouths of Lord Shiva, correspond also with 5 different energetic expansions, or shaktis. These are also kind of descriptive qualities of Paramashiva when he comes down into individual being. First is Chit Shakti, the energy of consciousness. He is consciousness. Next, Ananda Shakti, the energy of bliss. This bliss, kind of like grace, shaktipata, unfolds within the sadhaka. Next, Icha Shakti, divine will, the energy of will, that kind of black flame which ignites within the heart of the sadhaka. Next, Jnana Shakti, divine knowledge. We receive this knowledge from the shastras, from the agamas, from our guru, from our environment. The will to attain knowledge, Icha Jnana. And now finally, we have Kriya. Kriya means action. Kriya Shakti is the energy of action, meaning now that we have attained this knowledge, now we act upon it. So this is our sadhana, our practices, and our karma yoga, how we engage with this world.
Okay, so basically all of those levels of Shakti are having their own essence, their own purpose, basically. Those are all the levels of power which lead to the supreme reality. Now, can you just elaborate on how one can start the path? Okay, I am, for example, a new person. I want to start trica Kashmiri Shaivism. Where should I start? What should be my first ritual? What should be my...
This requires more explanation. This is just the beginning. There is, to understand the trica path, we need to delve deeper into these transmissions of Swachendanata, and then I will give basic sadhana after this, for anyone can begin to practice this, and resources. I say, I want to make it clear before we go deeper into this. I am not a guru, and I'm not authorized to give initiation. I have 2 gurus. I am a shishya. I can transmit knowledge, and I can teach. So we continue. There is these 5 heads of Paramashiva. So even our thoughts, right, go through this process of Sarsti Stihiti Samhara, of Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. Like an impression comes, and then this impression becomes a thought. This thought is maintained, and then this thought is dissolved, and the next thought begins. This same process is found in our breath. This same process of these 5 heads, and also concealment and revelation. This is in every activity of this universe. So this is, we're beginning the unfolding of individuality expanding from universality, right? So these 5 heads and 5 shaktis, again, deity is Vishnu. So again, first, Srishti, creation. Stihiti is maintenance. Next, Samhara, dissolution. Taradana, concealment or ignorance. Anugraha, revelation. Then the 5 shaktis. Chit, Ananda, Icha, Jnana, Kriya. Consciousness, Ananda, bliss. Icha, will. Jnana, knowledge. Kriya, action. These also correspond and they link to 3 different states of awareness, 3 different states of awareness, and that is Jagrat, which is wakefulness. We are in Jagrat now. This is the waking state. Next is Swapna. Swapna is the dreaming state. Next is Sushupti. Sushupti is deep sleep or voidness. These are 3 main states which our awareness is moving in between. These 3 states correspond with Sarsti, creation, with Stihiti, maintenance, and also with Rudra, Samhara, dissolution, right? Creation is Jagrat, wakefulness. Stihiti, Vishnu, maintenance. This is the dreaming state. Next, dissolution or Rudra. This is the deep sleep state of voidness where we lose our awareness. So these correspond. These things are all connecting, right? Beyond these 3 states of wakefulness, Jagrat, of dreaming, Swapna, and of deep sleep, Sushupti, is Turiya. And Turiya is the thread that binds all of these together. When Turiya is conceived, then the sadhaka maintains his awareness moving through all of these states. His awareness of his connection with the supreme reality, Brahma Shiva, this is maintained even in the depths of deep sleep and in the voidness of deep sleep. Now, there's also 3 other devis or goddesses which correspond with this. Parashakti, Parashakti, and Aparashakti. And this is where the symbolism of the Trishila comes from. The symbolism in the word trica is meaning these 3 devis. So, lowest, Aparashakti, inferior energy. This is what keeps us bound in individuality. This corresponds with the first 10 Agamas, the Shaivism, which are dualist, which teach that we are separate from this universe. Next, Parashakti, intermediate energy. This is teaching that that energy, it keeps you from falling, but it doesn't keep you rising. This energy is intermediate energy. So there is a glimpse of our oneness with supreme element Paramashiva, but there is also a degree of separation. This is that energy, Parashakti. This corresponds with the dualist, non-dualist Agamas, the Rautra Agamas. And next, the supreme expanded energy of Lord Shiva is Parashakti, supreme Shakti. And this corresponds with the Bhairava Agamas of pure Advaita, non-dualism, meaning that any degree of separation between individual being and the universal being, Paramashiva, is dissolved. So this energy, Parashakti, is what reveals the reality of one's eternal union with everything, with Paramashiva. So, as you see, things are starting to interweave. All of these first activities of 5-headed Shiva, all of these energetic expansions or shaktis of 5-headed Shiva, interweave with these different agamas, agamic transmissions, which interweave with the three different deities or shaktis of the Trishula, which interweave with the three different states, that being Swapna, dreaming state, Jagra, wakeful state, and Sushupti, dream state, which intertwine even with other things in that tradition. You will always find that there's a significance of three moving throughout the trica tradition, but then there's always things beyond this three that weave all of this trifold processes together. So next, let's look at the upayas. Upaya, we have anavupaya. Upaya means method. Anavupaya, this is called inferior method. This is rituals. This is puja. This is mantra. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Jam Samritishvara Bharavaya Namaha. Right? Chanting your mantras. Anavupaya relies upon bodily processes, reliance on the breath, reliance on any bodily phenomenon as a means of elevation, as a means of Tantra, expansion of our consciousness. This is anavupaya. Beyond anavupaya, there exists shaktopaya. Shaktopaya is now, body is abandoned. And now this method of shaktopaya, this is, it's mental. These practices are visualizations. An example from the Bhairava Tantra is one of the powerful shaktopaya dharanas is to feel the prakasha, agni, the fires of Kalagni Rudra moving up from the left toe and burning, this effulgence burning the body and then reducing the body to ashes. This is one of the visualizations of the Shaktopaya method. So Shaktopaya now, body is abandoned and now it is purely mental. Beyond Shaktopaya comes Sambhopaya, the method of Shiva. Sambhopaya, both mind is discarded and body is discarded. Sambhopaya, there is no practice. This is just a very silent state where one attains a oneness with Paramashiva, where objectivity and where cognition has faded and only consciousness exists here in this field of Sambhopaya. Beyond Sambhopaya, in all of these three upayas, beyond anavupaya, beyond shaktopaya, beyond Sambhopaya, is anupaya. Anupaya means no method. And anupaya, similarly to how turiya binds wakefulness, jagra, dreaming state, swapna, deep sleep, sushupti. Turiya binds all of these states together. This is the in between all of these states, just like the thread running through the beads exists turiya. Similarly with the upayas, anupaya binds all of these modes of practice together. So anupaya, when perceived, can now be found in the lower practices of ritualism and bodily practices, havans, pujas, all of these things. It can be found in anavupaya. It can be found in shaktopaya, and it can be found in sambhopaya. Anupaya is pervading all of these different methods of practice. Next, we will speak on the tatvas. The tatvas are 36 elements discovered by the traditions of Kashmir Shaivism and by the acharyas of our traditions. These tatvas are elements, and these elements have moved or expanded out from Paramashiva, from Swachandanata, and these have become the building blocks, essentially, of everything, all of these shaktis, these energies around us. Everything is shakti, right? Everything is energy and forms. These tattvas are the ingredients of diversity which we experience around us. right? And they have expanded out from that pure non-dual state of Paramashiva down into very subtle states of awareness and consciousness, expanding out into cognitive processes, down into organic processes of the body, and expanding outwards into our objective perception and into objectivity. In this way, the universe of multiplicity and diversity has come into being through these tattvas. And these tattvas are associated with phonemes of the Matri chakra, the esoteric application of the Sanskrit alphabet. These tattvas are empowered by phonemes. So in the advanced teachings of Kashmir Shaivism, when one attains some level of mastery through the grace of his master over the Matri chakra, then he attains some amount of mastery over these elements, these tattvas. So we begin from this very pure, non-dual state of consciousness, expanding outward. This whole universe of diversity has been expanded from subjectivity into objectivity. We'll begin with the lowest elements, which everyone knows these lowest 5 elements. These are the Panchamahabhutas. So the Panchamahabhutas, Prithvi, earth, Jala, water, Tejas, fire, Vayu, air, Akash, ether. These are your 5 basic elements in the occult systems. And these are the lowest, grossest elements of our tradition. And next, we move further inwards. Let's move further inwards from these Panchamahabhutas, these 5 great elements, into the Pancha Tanmatras, the 5 subtle elements. This is Gandha, smell, Ras, taste, Rupa, form, Sparsha, touch, Sapta, sound. And we move further inwards through these elements. The next, the Pancha Karmendriyas, the organs of action. Upasta, which is creative force. Next, Payu, excretion. Next, Pada, foot. Pani, hand. Walk, speech. And we move further inwards. Pancha Gyanendriyas, the 5 organs of knowledge. Next, Grahana, nose, the organ of smelling. This corresponds with, this is the organ of smelling, right? Not the sense of smell itself. We already said Gandha, the first of the Pancha Tanmatras is Gandha, right? Which means smell. But this is further along in these tattvas, Pancha Gyanendriyas. The first, Grahana, this is the organ of smelling. So there's a difference between the sensory perception of smelling and between the organ of smelling. Next, Rasana, this is the tongue, or the organ of taste. Next, Chaksha, the organ of seeing. Next, Twak, the organ of its skin, the organ of touching. Next, Shrotra, the organ of hearing, or the ears. We move further inwards. Antakaranas. There's 3 internal organs. Manas, mind. Buddhi, intellect. Next, Ahamkara, objective ego. Ahamkara is I am Bhairava Sadhaka, and this is my body. This is identification with the body and with the limited ego. This is ahamkara, right? Next, prakriti. This is our nature, our instinct. Next, purusha, subjective ego. So the subjective ego, purusha, and the objective ego, ahamkara, are different. Ahamkara is identification with our personality and with our body. Whereas purusha is not identification with this. Purusha is identification with the essence which exists within us, with Paramatma, right? This inner essence. It is not identification with the body or with the limited ego. Next group of tattvas or elements, the Sat Kansukas. These are called the 6 coverings. Niyati, the limit of place. Kala, the limit of time. Raga, the limit of attachment. Vidya, the limit of knowledge. Kala, the limit of action. And Maya, illusion of exclusive individuality. Next, we go into the highest tattvas, or the pure elements. These are the ones which are closest to our internal nature, are closest to that of Paramashiva. These were the first expansions of Paramashiva. Suddha tattvas. First is Suddha Vidya. This is I-ness and I-ness, thisness and thisness. So what this means is there's I-ness, subjective I-ness here, and then there is this. There is I and this. This is Suddha Vidya. There's subjective and there's objective. The next is Ishvara. Ishvara is thisness and I-ness. So now Sadhaka realizes that this exists within him. Next, Sadashiva is I-ness and thisness. So this next element of Sadashiva is now the sadhaka sees himself, I-ness, in the objective world, in thisness. And next, tattva is Shakti. Shakti is this realization, I am this universe. This is Shakti tattva. I am this. I am this universe. I am all objective world. Subjective and objective are merging in the Shakti tattva. And then the last element, or the purest element in this unfolding of these 36 elements, is just I-ness. It is not I am the universe, it is just I am. It is just I am. There is no universe, it is just I am. So this is the 36 tattvas, essential for beginners approaching this tradition of Kashmir Shaivism. And beyond all 36 elements, again, there is an element which weaves all of these together, which is found in the lowest element of Prithvi, earth, all the way up to the highest elements of Shakti tattva and Shiva tattva. And this is Paramashiva. Paramashiva is this universal substance which pervades all of these, from the grossest, most corporeal, material, physical elements, leading back into the deep, subtle, internal elements and processes of awareness and consciousness. Of course, I don't expect people watching this video now to remember all of these things, but I want this video to serve as a resource so people can go back and they can study these different theories. Before I get into the practice, there's one last thing I would like to cover, which are the malas. The three malas of Kashmir Shaivism is Anava Mala, Karma Mala, and Maya Mala. Anava Mala is the greatest of the malas, and this is a feeling of emptiness or not being full. You know, it's a feeling that we are not full. And this is what keeps us bound into individuality and samsara. Beneath this is Karma Mala. This is a limitation of the body where we only identify with the body. And then there is Maya Mala, which is this, it is an impurity which causes differentiation. So I am different from you. You are different from him. I am different from this wall here. You know, this is Maya Mala, is this elusive differentiation which we find ourselves consumed by. So like this, I kind of explained the basic knowledge of our tradition. And the next is deserving to explain the lineage of our tradition. Of course, trica Shaivism is very ancient, and it has come down from Kailash, you know, like the 5 peaks of Kailash. In the Satyuga, this is where 5-headed Shiva was said to have manifested, was on Kailash. And he begun this agamic transmissions. But what is Kailash? Is Kailash this 5 mountains? It is. But internally, Kailash is the Agya chakra. It is the 3rd eye chakra, the peak summit of the chakra. So when Swachandanatha, 5-head Shiva, comes and he manifests and he gives these transmissions upon Kailash, what is meant is that this agamic transmission of Swachandanatha has unfolded in the high chakras of his devotees in the Satyuga. And the sun, in Abhinavagupta's Bhagavad Gita, we have the Bhagavad Gita in our tradition. It is not purely a Vaishnava Shastra. It is a Shaivite Shastra. Abhinavigupta revealed the Bhagavad Gita. Abhinavigupta is one of the greatest saints of our tradition. And in his revelation of the Bhagavad Gita, he explains that this yoga, this practice, has come from the sun and is passed down to Manu and passed down to Ichvaku and these great kings, these great rulers were initiated into this tradition. As the yugas go on, beginning of Kali Yuga, the tradition was over, kind of ended, until there was a manifestation of Lord Shiva called Sri Kantanata. And Sri Kantanata initiated a sincere devotee named Durvasa Rishi at the beginning of the Kali Yuga. So our lineage was born at the beginning of the Kali Yuga. From Durvasa Rishi, I have one of my guru, I have his story of this, of how our lineage was restarted in the Kali Yuga. In the form of Sri Kantanata, he, meaning Paramashiva, taught the theory of the Bhairava Tantras, the non-dual Tantras, to the sage Durvasa Rishi. Sri Kantanata initiated him at Mount Kailas. Sri Kantanata told him that he was to expand the thought of the Bhairava Tantras, the non-dual Agamas, in all of the universe without restriction to caste, color, or creed. After Sri Kantanata taught Durvasa Rishi in this manner, Sri Kantanata disappeared into the aether. Durvasa Rishi, after meditating completely to acquire a real and fit disciple for initiation, became disappointed. Durvasa Rishi could not find anyone in this world fit to be initiated. His initiation was practical initiation because while initiating someone in the thought of the Bhairava Tantras, he simultaneously initiated him in the practical side of his thought. And this practical initiation manifested itself immediately without the disciples having to do any practice or yoga. This disciple would become instantaneously enlightened as he could not find a disciple fit for this initiation. Durvasa Rishi created a mind-born son. So he created a son from his mind to receive this direct initiation. And this son was called Triambaka Nata. Durvasa Rishi completely initiated Triambaka Nata in the way of the monistic or non-dual Bhairava Tantras. Afterwards, he created two more mind-born sons, Amardakanata and Srinata. He initiated Amardakanata in the dualistic Shaiva Agamas Tantras, and he initiated his other son, Srinata, in the dualistic, non-dualistic Rudra Tantras. For the upliftment of woman, Durvasa Rishis created one mind-born daughter, and she was called Ardhatrayambaka. Kashmir Shaivism does not recognize women to be in a state of degradation. Durvasa Rishi initiated her completely in the monistic thought of the Bhairava Tantras. As this view that women are not in the state of degradation is not held by the other two schools of Shaivism, the dualistic and monodualistic schools, Durvasa Rishi created only one mind-born daughter. His daughter, Ardhatrayambaka's teachings, is known as the Ardhatrayambaka school of the Bhairava Tantras. But as the continuity of the Ardhatrayambaka school manifested itself from one woman to another secretly, there is no history of this school coming from Durvasa Rishi's mind-born daughter. Durvasa Rishi's son, Triambaka Nata, the founder of the monistic school of Shaivism, the Bhairavagamic school of Shaivism, he was a celibate brahmachari. According to the way of the sage Durvasa Rishi, he also created one mind-born son named Triambaka Ditya, which means the expansion of Triambaka Nata. After initiating him completely in the Bhairava Tantras, Triambaka Nata entered a cave, which is known as Triambaka Guha cave, and disappeared. Triambaka Nata's son, Triambaka Ditya, also created one mind-born son, and after initiating him, Triambaka Ditya disappeared into the aether. In this manner, 15 siddhas were created by the minds of these first initiates in the beginning of the Kali Yuga. The 15th siddha was not fully introverted, but at the same time, he was also given to worldly pleasures. Because of this subtle impurity, he was not successful in creating a mind-born son. After sitting long in meditation, he found in this world a girl with good qualities, and he went to her father and made arrangements to marry her. After marriage, they created one son, who was called Samgamiditya, who by his will came to the valley of Kashmir and found Kailash mountain. Sangamaditya, like his father, married and produced one son named Varsaditya, whom he initiated completely in the thought of the Bhairava Agamas. Varsaditya also married and produced one son named Arunaditya, whom he initiated fully. Arunaditya married and created one son named Ananda, whom he initiated and was completely informed practically in Shaivism. This sage Ananda was the father of Somadandanatha, the originator of the Pratabhigya school of Shaivism, and the author of Shiva Drishti. Up to the time of Somanandanatha, the initiation into the monistic thought of the Bhairava Agamas took place from father to son. From Somanandanatha on, this initiation took place from master to disciple. Somanandanatha was the master of Utpaladeva. Utpaladeva was the master of Lakshmanagupta. Lakshmanagupta was the master of the great Abhinavigupta. Now I will explain to you how this Achyagupta, a great scholar of Kashmir Shaivism, came from India to live in the Kashmir Valley. During his reign, the king Lalitaditya traveled to India from Kashmir, wherein Antarvedi, a tract of land in Madhya Pradesh, which lies between Yamuna and the Ganges rivers, he discovered the great Shaiva teacher, Achyagupta. Lalitaditya was deeply impressed by the scholarship and practical way of Achyagupta and requested him to accompany him in the Kashmir Valley. Achyagupta agreed, and upon reaching Kashmir, was given the old palace of Pravarashena to live in because it was very near to the palace of the king Lalitaditya. After he moved to Kashmir, there was no authority on Kashmir Shaivism left in India. From this time forward, the teaching of the thought of Bhairava Tantras is called Kashmir Shaivism, and this teaching has continued to remain centered only in the Kashmir Valley. These Bhairava Tantras are pervasive throughout the whole world. However, they began in the Kashmir Valley, resided there, and are still alive there today. After some centuries in the house of Achyagupta, Varahagupta was born. He is the father of Narasimhagupta, and Narasimhagupta is the father of our great Abhinavigupta. Although Abhinavigupta had many disciples, both men and women, his chief disciple was Kemaraja, and the chief disciple of Kemaraja was Yogaraja. After many centuries in the Kashmir Valley, Swami Ram came into physical body. His chief disciple was Swami Mahatabhaka, and I, Swami Lakshmanju, was a disciple of Mahatabhaka. So this explains the lineage from Sri Kantanatha and the Kali Yuga all the way up to the current master, Swami Lakshmanju Maharaj. This has to be explained to pay our respects unto the Sampradaya and unto the lineage. So now that there has been a brief introduction to some of the knowledge of this tradition and to the lineage of this tradition, the origins of this tradition, the origins of the Agamas, the origins of Tantra, there's a very basic practice which anyone can begin doing. And this was taught by Swami Lakshmanju Maharaj, and this also appears in the revelations of Abhinavigupta, in the Tantra Loka of Abhinavigupta. Anyone who gets into Kashmir Shaivism, you become very well acquainted with Abhinavigupta in the Tantra Loka. This practice is simply, you breathe in, you inhale, and you observe a natural pause at the end of the breath. You exhale, and you focus on the pause at the end of exhalation. So it's a 4-step process of inhalation, pause, focus on the pause, then exhalation, pause and focus on the pause. During inhalation, the breath comes in and there's a natural junction where the inhale becomes exhalation. This junction point is to be focused on. After exhalation, the breath is held outside of the body, roughly 12 finger spaces outside of the body. And then there is a junction point where exhalation becomes inhalation. The purpose of this practice is to find the center of your being, which is located in between inhalation and exhalation. This is called sandhi, or centering. So we focus on the center of the breath, and this is one of the main practices of Kashmir Shaivism that anyone can start doing. The theory is that when we find the center of the breath, this absorbs you into the central vein, Sushumna, which enables the Kundalini Shakti to rise up from the Muladhara chakra, or to expand simultaneously throughout all of the body. This is why Lord Ganesha is always praised before we begin many of our practices. It doesn't have to be, but I often will chant Om Gram Gam Ganapataye Namaha, because Lord Ganesha is not elephant Murti or elephant Rupa. Lord Ganesha is the breath. Through praying unto Lord Ganesh, we get initiation into the central vein, into the center of. Similarly, how this pranana, it's called pranana, exists in the center of the breath, and this gives birth to exhalation and inhalation. It gives birth to prana and apana. What is apana? Apana is inhalation. What is inhalation truly? Inhalation is when we take the objective world and we inhale all of the diversity. All differences get inhaled into our being and then held within us. Then exhalation is giving rise, giving birth, creating the outer universe around us. So that's why the breath is such an important focus, is because from the breath, all things of this universe have come from this breath of Paramashiva. But what is there pervading both inhalation, apana, and exhalation, prana, is pranana. It gives rise to both of these things. This is God. This is Paramashiva. It's located in between the breath, which is the center of our being. When we locate the central point of our being, and we see that it is prakasha vimarsha, it is divine light, effulgent, and it is aware. It is universal awareness. When we locate this and find this within us, then pratibimba vada, we see this reflected in everything. We see this reflected in every object. We see this between every movement, every step, every thought. But the initiation into this pratibimba vada, or this being capable of seeing divine effulgent Paramashiva in all things, is through the center point of the breath. We breathe 21,600 times each day. Each time we take a breath is a chance to focus into the center of our being. So again, to do this practice, let's say you sit down, you want to do this practice now. Swami Lakshmanju gives us a mantra which we chant first. This is called the Agora mantra. This is also revealed in the Pancha Brahma mantras and also in Agamas, in other Agamic Shastra. It is Om Agoremyo Tagoremyo Gora Gora Tarimbyascha Sarvata Sarva Sarvembyo Namaste Rudra Rupembya Agoremyo Tagoremyo Gora Gora Tarimbyascha Sarvata Sarva Sarvembyo Namaste Rudra Rupembya Agoremyo Tagoremyo Gora Gora parimyascha saharvata sarva sarvemyo namaste rudra rupemya. Inhale. At the end of inhalation, focus on the pause and shift your awareness in between the eyebrows. Then exhale. At the end of exhalation, focus on the pause, roughly 12 finger spaces from the end of the nostrils. And then inhale. Focus on bindu and the pause. And exhale. And this is one of the most basic yet advanced practices in our tradition. It sounds simple, but to hold this practice in one pointedness is not simple. And this becomes the foundation of all mantras. All mantras flow out from the breath. And the highest mantra, paravak. Paravak means supreme speech. It is the vibrational breath of Paramashiva. And it cannot be represented by a sound. It is much beyond aham or om. It is beyond this, and it is silent, but it can be perceived. This is paravak, the supreme speech of Paramashiva. So in this silence, this is perceived. And from this paravak, the supreme mantra, the supreme speech, gives rise to all mantras and all phonemes of the Sanskrit alphabet, the Matri chakra system, which gives rise to all diversity of objectivity. People who want to take this seriously, there is Swami Lakshmanju. His Mahasamadhi was in 1991, so he left his body in 1991. But before he left his body, he taught all of Kashmir Shaivism in its completion in his books, and all of his books are from his lectures. Actually, they're transmissions of his transcripts of his lectures. So all of the audio recordings exist. So as we study his words, we study his audio recordings. So he preserved all of our teachings. Kashmir Shaivism in its completion. Swami Lakshmanju did this, and his devotees recorded everything. And they have a website now called Lakshmanju Academy, where we can get access to all of Swami Lakshmanju's teachings and all of his revelations of our ancient Agamas and our ancient shastras given to us from our saints, like Abhinavigupta, Utpaladeva, Vasagupta. So this is how we can get into Kashmir Shaivism, is through studying the works of Swami Lakshmanju and practicing the works of Swami Lakshmanju, and beginning with this breath meditation, which I have given. And this is also revealed in the Vigyan Bhairava Tantra. It's actually in the Vigyan Bhairava Tantras, this is 112 different methods of becoming one with Paramashiva. It's a very ancient shastra. But all of these methods are said they must be discarded, and that the most powerful means of becoming one with Paramashiva is through focusing on the central point of the breath. So this is revealed in the ancient Vigyana Bhairava Tantras. So this is kind of the Kashmir Shaivism, is to learn the teachings of Swami Lakshmanju and allow his Vani to initiate you in this way. Although he doesn't possess a physical body, he now possesses a subtle body. And those sincere devotees, Swami Lakshmanju will give them initiations in their dreams and things like this. Kashmir Shaivism is divided into 4 schools: Pratabhigya, Spanda, and this is like the right-hand schools, the right-handed schools. And then there is the left-handed more Vama schools, which is Shakta schools, Devi schools, which is Kula and Krama. Lakshmanju gives the teachings of the Pratabhigya in the Spanda school mostly. In Pratabhigya, the teachings of Pratabhigya is direct recognition or direct realization of oneness with Lord Shiva. There is no practice in Pratabhigya. It's instantaneous. You just sit down, not even sit down. You could be out in the world talking and doing all these things, and then that realization hits you. I am Paramashiva. That is Pratabhigya. Spanda. Spanda is this vibrational movement of Paramashiva deep within us, which is expanding into universality and contracting individuality. This is Spanda in the teachings of Spanda. It's this kind of expansive and contraction. Ingoing breath and outgoing breath of the universe is kind of the essence of Spanda. But then we move to the Vama paths of our tradition, which is Kula. Kula, here you will find a lot of different rituals, and it's more centered around Shaktism and around Kali and Bhairava. And here you find havans, pujas, chanting mantras and things. But the whole purpose of the Kula school is to maintain individuality while also simultaneously being universal. So that's why this is Vama Marga, because Vama Marga does not mean complete samavesha or absorption into universality, but it means that you maintain individuality and universality simultaneously. So what's Swatantriya Shakti, the qualities of Paramashiva is that God can be a one singularity and a one single consciousness, or he can become an ant, or he can become a fish. So moksha, liberation, does not mean that you just get absorbed into this universal singular effulgence. Moksha means freedom, the freedom where we can go down into individuality and then move back up into singular universality, or be both simultaneously. Moksha means you can be the eternal sky and you can be a rock at the same time. And this is the teachings hidden in Kula, this goddess-centered Vama Marga school within Kashmir Shaivism. And then there's the Krama. And Krama means succession, or like a ladder. And this is using your energies or your shaktis. What is Shakti? Shakti is not the Murti here. This is not Kali. This has the form of Kali, but Kali is not this. What is Kali? What is Shakti? Devi. Shakti is everywhere around us. It is energy. If Paramashiva is the sun, Shakti is the rays of the sun. Therefore, to say that I bow to the goddess or I bow to Shakti is that means you're using your own energies, like your breath, like mantra, like puja, So Krama is using your energies, bowing to the goddess, bowing to the Shaktis, all of the energies, to rise yourself, to raise yourself up into the state of Shiva. Those are the four schools of Kashmir Shaivism. Through Swami Lakshmanju, most people can get initiated into the Pratabhigya and into the Spanda schools. But to learn Kula and Krama, because of the nature of Kula and Krama, where there's all these rituals and there's mantras, and it is using kind of at times dangerous energies and things, it's almost essential, not always, but 99.9% of people, it's essential for them to find a living master. So I also do have a living master, and I am initiated into a school called Sarvamnaya, which has come out from the Kula and the Krama schools of Trica Kashmir Shaivism. I will not reveal who my master is, but anyone watching this, first come to the lotus feet of Swami Lakshmanju and then decide if you want to delve deeper into Kula and Krama. It's not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary. But if you want to delve deeper into the Shakta practices, then come to me, and then I can put them in contact with my living guru in the Charya. So here ends basically everything I had to say on this topic up until now. I would love to hear some of your own input, Gene.
Okay, so I listened to you carefully, and What became pretty clear that you're extremely versed in literature, and I appreciate the effort you invested to present to the people this relatively complex and obscure spiritual tradition. Now, what kind of interests me here? Because I listen carefully and I want to know what is the position of Kashmir Shaivism on deities in general. Are the deities simply the states of energy, or they do exist as consciousnesses, or are they simply symbols for transformation of consciousness? Like, how would you define deities?
Deity is existing within us. Abhinavigupta says that your organs are your gods. Your organs are the devas. And also, like in the Bhagavad Gita is one of our shastras. Some people need to worship God in the form of a mother. Some people need to worship God in the form of a father. Some people need to worship God in the form of a son or daughter or something. So some people need to have some kind of external devotion where they create, where they use the rupa or the form, a deity, in order to cultivate this devotion. But rare individuals can worship and can ascend spiritually from that effulgent light within their own being. So basically my answer to this is that both is correct. Both of those things is correct. The deities are, in their most true sense, they are shaktis, which exist internally, which expand externally, and they can be worshipped internally through one's own energy and offered to the effulgent light of Paramashiva, which exists within, or they can be worshipped in the form of a murti, a body, such as this.
Okay. So that is interesting answer. I really appreciate it. So according to Kashmir Shaivism, what is the destiny of our souls after death? What happens after we die?
The theory of Kashmir Shaivism is kind of similar to the other sampradayas. Reincarnation is most likely, or you become one with everything, and that is moksha. Based on your activities, based on grace. Moksha is based on grace. You become fully into that state of Shiva, and then you become everything. You become all bodies, not just one body. Or you reincarnate into another form of life. Could be less complex based on what you do. Could be like an ant, could be like a deer, could be a tree. But in the Spanda Karika, one thing that's different is that you do not need to be human to have this moksha, to have this shaktipata unfold within you. It can unfold in anything, in any species, in any creature. Another thing is, the 8 limbs of yoga. Are you familiar with this? I'm sure you are.
Yeah, I am familiar, but you are free to give your own spin on that.
Okay, so the 8 limbs of yoga is taught by the sage Patanjali. They are not the focus of Kashmir Shaivism. Abhinavigupta identifies 6 limbs of yoga, which is important in Kashmir Shaivism. That is pranayama, the breath, pratyahara. Pratyahara is withdrawal of the senses. Then dhyana. Dhyana is meditation. Then dharana. Dharana is one-pointedness. Then tarka. Tarka is the sense of differentiation. And then samadhi. And you know what samadhi is. It's oneness with universality. So he acknowledged these 6 limbs of yoga, but the 6 limbs of yoga is an advanced state. So for beginners, they should obtain mastery over the Patanjalian 8 limbs of yoga, that being niyama, yama, then asan, like your stretches, pranayama, breath, pratyahara, withdrawal from resistance, dharana, one-pointedness, dhyana, meditation, and then samadhi. So for beginners, they should attain mastery over the 8 limbs of Patanjali's yoga system before they attempt the 6th limb system of Abhinavigupta and of Kashmir Shaivism. And it was expected that they had masteries over the 8 limbs of yoga. And niyama and yamas are very important in the 8 limb yoga system. That is, the niyamas are the niyamas and yamas are vows. The niyamas are tapas, self-control, saucha, cleanliness, santoja, contentment, tapasya, temptation, so you control your temptation, swadhyaya, self-knowing. The yamas are ahimsa. Ahimsa is very important. This means non-injury. What we eat, what we wear. If one is rising into God consciousness and we see that Paramashiva is expanded in all beings, then we try to reduce our harm as much as possible. This is why I encourage complete vegan lifestyle and also sobriety. I encourage, outside of Kashmir Shaivism, I'm an animal rights activist and I'm an environmental scientist. So my whole life is geared towards, that's kind of my service unto God, is to try to raise awareness and try to help animals where I can, help the environment. Beyond ahimsa is satya, truth, asteya, being honest, brahmacharya, only have eyes for your partner. Brahmacharya doesn't mean complete celibacy. In Kashmir Shaivism, brahmacharya means that you control your lust, your sexual desires. And if you have a wife or you have a husband or your partner, you preserve this love for them only. You don't look at other women, you don't look at other women sexually. And brahmacharya also means to see God within everything. And aparagraha, which means don't hoard. don't hoard objects that you don't need, but also don't hold on to thoughts that you don't need that can cloud your mind and things and cloud your being. Those are the niyamas and yamas, and they are important for beginners. And before someone could even begin to practice Kashmir Shaivism, they had to have some degree of control or mastery over these external and internal vows.
Okay, so it's really interesting how you systematically elaborate everything. I am interviewer here, but in order to fully grasp this interview, I will have to re-listen it many times in order to use it as a resource. Basically, you did amazing job. But I am interested in you told me, or somebody else told me who contacted you, that because of the magnetic field of the Arctic, Shakti moves differently in that area, and so there are many intense spiritual phenomena around Arctic. What you can tell about that polar climate and how it influences manifestations of spiritual phenomena in ritual for you specifically?
I don't focus much on ritual, but yeah, I do most the meditation, japa. Sometimes I do puja for my masters, and karma yoga. And karma yoga is so important. That is when we go out, pretty much the idea of karma yoga is that Paramashiva exists within us. So there's no need to really do rituals. If we do it if you want, but there's not really any need, because as long as we're engaging our senses, our eyes, nose, mouth, ears, all of these senses are being offered to that being that exists within us. So even if we don't like it or we don't know it, 24/7 we are doing offerings unto Paramashiva. So being here, there's basically endless wilderness and surrounded by alpine tundra and taiga, like boreal forest. We're not far from Siberia here, actually. And it's for me, loving nature, being an environmental scientist, loving animals, trying to protect animals, being in a place where it's seemingly unending wilderness and vast Arctic expanse helps me practice this karma yoga. It helps me when I go out and I'm walking or working or doing all of these things. I'm just offering all of my senses unto Paramashiva. Being in the Arctic as well, it's extremes. So it goes from being -50, -60 to being dark pretty much all the time, to then all of a sudden it's light out all the time and it's warm. So it's moving from extremes. It's extremes always. Being literally hundreds, if not thousands of kilometers away from any home or light or anything, this changes people. It transforms people to go to these remote locations, as doing field work and stuff. Like, you get dropped off in remote areas from helicopters or from bush planes, and to know that you are just alone in this vastness, it transforms people, I believe. And here we have, of course, the aurora borealis, the northern lights and things. And it is anywhere in this world one can initiate into this path, depending on your awareness. The shaktipata is everywhere. But I just think that here in the polar region, it is just more noticeable. It is not as hidden.
So basically, I wanted to ask you on your opinion about how eating meat or being vegan influences our spiritual development in a literal sense, in a sense of Shakti. Can you go into that?
Well, Shakti is expanded within everything. And I'd like to talk about Pashubali to really describe this. In the Agamas, people are doing animal sacrifice, right? Or at least it seems this way. Same thing in the Vedas. However, this does not mean to go and find a living animal and to offer it. This means to offer your limited awareness and your limited individuality to the lotus feet of Devi. Shastric writing is esoteric. Esoteric means internal. It does not mean physical. It does not mean literal. It is written as symbolism. Those who have interpreted Panchamukaras, five forbidden mukar, the five forbidden rituals. You find Agoris doing this and things. And those in the Shakta temples of West Bengal and things who are killing innocent animals and offering their blood unto the Murti, they have interpreted these Shastras completely in the wrong way. This is internal. Agamas are to be, Agamic understanding is internal. Pashubali means you offer the beast within yourself. And the excuse that they give, let's offer this animal. And as soon as its blood touches the Murti, the animal has moksha. But if this is true, how come the rascal who's doing this doesn't slit his own throat and pour his own blood onto the Murti? Next, when we're eating flesh or byproducts, if I extend it, me personally, I extend this to milk, eggs, wool, anything that comes from an animal. If we need it to survive, it's justifiable. Ahimsa and veganism is not a philosophy of saying, oh, we're just going to die. But when we have a choice to eat something that lacks as complex a nervous system and something that will not be harmed as much, then we always choose that. Anatomically, the human being appears to be a herbivore. The human being has an elongated intestine. Like all herbivores, the human being produces his own cholesterol. Like other herbivores, the human being chews in a grinding motion. Like other herbivores, omnivores and carnivores chew like this. Omnivores and carnivores have shorter intestines. Omnivores and carnivores also have much more protruded canines than humans. So we don't need any animal products to survive. If we identify Shakti expanded in all beings, this means that we now have a duty to reduce our harm unto those beings and to live in a way where we try to cherish the Shakti which is expanded everywhere, such as become a soldier of the environment. become a voice of the voiceless, meaning the animals. We kill 80 billion animals every year in farms. In the process, we're using 1/3 of the world's fresh water. We're destroying endless amounts of habitat. We're producing greenhouse gases and pollution unnecessarily for products that we don't need to eat. Selectively breeding, genetically modifying, drugging, forcibly impregnating, and confining billions of animals. For what? Animal products and animal protein makes our bodies unhealthy anyways. It's a very rare condition. It's almost not even worth mentioning where someone actually needs to eat animal byproducts. But in today's world, with today's technologies and today's advancement in sciences, we can supplement almost everything with plant-based diet. Almost everything. So this is a path of reducing our harm. And this also goes to vivisection, animal experimentation, to the work which we do. All of these things, we have to become conscious. And, as it is said in the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Lakshmanju, in Swami Lakshmanju's translation, he says that he who has realized himself to be the avatar, to be Parama Shiva, he becomes an elevator of the other beings of this universe. Swami Lakshmanju's guru, Swami Mahataka, and his guru, Swami Ram, they ate meat. A lot of Kashmiris actually ate meat. When Swami Lakshmanju came along, he changed this and he said, no, let's become vegetarian. So he changed things from meat eating in Kashmir to vegetarianism. And Swami Lakshmanju did not support Pashu Bali, and he did not support Vedic animal sacrifice. He was very against it. But now I take things even further. During the time of Swami Lakshmanju, veganism was not very well known. But now I take it further and we look at milk, look at all of the pain, torture, and environmental devastation that's been caused because of milk. So now I don't even believe in drinking milk or eating eggs, because we're the only animal, you think about it, we're the only animal that takes the milk from another species. A cow requires between 35 and 115 liters of water every day, and a crazy amount of land. And those vegetarians drinking milk don't understand that over 95% of dairy cows end up as hamburger. So they're supporting the same industry. Cow gets artificially inseminated. A hand it's put up its anus, about this far up to the elbow. Another hand's put up its vagina with a syringe full of bull semen, right? So it's sexually violated. When this happens to a human, we call this rape or sexual assault. But when it happens to an animal, because of the lack of respect that we have for animal life, we just call it impregnation. Then it starts producing milk. Has its kids are taken from it within 3 days. Calves are supposed to be with the mother for 9 months, between 9 and 12 months. Then we take its milk, can't produce milk anymore, forcibly impregnated again. And slowly the body of the cow breaks down as the life gets drained from it, from this constant, endless, repetitive cycle of being impregnated and then being used for its secretions, until it can't produce anymore. And what happens? Off to the slaughterhouse after a life of torture and being manipulated sexually for its byproducts. In this process, we've destroyed, so much natural ecosystems, natural habitat, using so much water pollution, air pollution. So dairy is not innocent. Egg industry is not innocent. And even those who say, well, I have my own cow or I have my own chickens and I take their eggs. The question is, well, why? We don't need this to survive. It's actually very unhealthy for the human body. Who would have ever thought that taking a hen's period, which is an egg, and that taking growth hormones from another animal was unhealthy? It seems obvious. So the thing is that you don't have to be being a vegan to practice Kashmir Shaivism. You don't. Just people who I talk to, people who have come to me, who I introduced to this, I always encourage vegan ethics. It's kind of my own thing. And Swami Lakshmanju was very very supportive of animal rights. And basically for him, if you were a devotee of Swami Lakshmanji, you had no choice. You had to be a vegetarian. You know, he was very clear about this. And I can read some of his words in regards to meat consumption. Some of the words of Swami Lakshmanji here is gross non-violence is the shunning of that which is ahimsa is the shunning of that which is the worst of all violence, the killing of a living being and taking its life for the pleasure of eating it. There is no greater sin than this. To be really established in ahimsa, you must give up meat eating completely. You must shun it completely. In fact, the fruit of meditation can only be possessed by a pure vegetarian. All those involved in any way with the acts of killing, preparing, and eating meat, they are equally guilty, equally depraved, and criminal. Every aspect of this is wrong. Even those who witness the act of killing or witness the act of eating meat are criminals. I cannot impress upon you strongly enough how sinful and wrong this act is. The butcher, the cook, the consumer, the witness of any of these acts are all sinners. You may think that only the butcher who has actually slaughtered the animal is a sinner. You are wrong. Any person involved in any way is equally a sinner and a criminal in this most terrible, violent act of killing. Take one small piece of meat and you are just like the butcher himself. You both belong to the same class. About this, there is no doubt. Even if you may be vegetarian and yet you do not oppose this act of extreme violence, you are a sinner, judged to have committed the same crime. A person who, even though he is a vegetarian, is sociable with butchers, maintaining friendly contacts with them, is also a sinner, and he receives punishment. So it is your duty not only to maintain a strict vegetarian lifestyle, but also to loudly oppose the killing of animals and the eating of meat. You must communicate my message and this truth to everyone who is near and dear to you, to all your relatives, mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. That's just some of what he has to say about meat consumption. That's not even all. But yeah, I extend that into all animal byproducts. I'm a militant animal rights activist.
Okay, so you support people only eating plants. Okay.
Plants and grains, yeah, water. And actually,
Plants and
chapter 9, verse 26 of Bhagavad Gita kind of hints at vegan prasadam, at plant-based prasadam. I shouldn't say vegan prasadam. I should say plant-based prasadam, because it says basically God here in this verse says you can offer me fruits, you can offer me a flower, meaning budding plant. You can offer me leaves, vegetables, and water. And I accept all of this as prasadam. So there's even some kind of hint in that verse of Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is meant for the time that we live in now. That's the whole point of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is kind of just like how to spiritually progress during the time of spiritual darkness, during the Kali Yuga. I picked up on that. That's kind of my own little thing that I saw in the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay, so what do you think about traditional chakra stimulation exercises? Do you consider them valid, or
what's that, sorry?
what do you think about traditional chakra stimulation exercises? Do you consider them valid, or you have some other spin on that? Or you consider it all wrong?
The Kundalini Shakti rises when the Kundalini Shakti rises. It is based, again, this is based on shaktipata. Someone can put so much effort into making her rise, and she will never rise. And then someone doesn't put any effort into the rise of Kundalini Shakti, and then it rises like this. And there's actually two kinds of Kundalini Shakti. There's Chitta Kundalini, which rises from, Muladhara upwards, throat chakra, Agya, and then Sahasrara. But there is another one called Para Kundalini, Supreme Kundalini, which actually doesn't rise. It just expands in all directions, and it's instantaneous. So there's two different kinds, flows of Kundalini. One of them is just a simultaneous explosion, and then one is a steady rise through the chakras. I believe that we can do practices such as the Bhuta Suddhi meditation, a common Kula practice, I can tell this to non-initiates, where each chakra is symbolized by a beads mantra. So La is where Muladhara reaches the earth. And then there is Va, which is the genitals. And then there is Ra, which is navel area. And then Ya, chest, Ha, throat. And then Om, Agya. And then silence, meaning Sahasrara. And then back down to Ha, Ya, Ra, Va, and La. Of course, La, where the base meets the earth, the Muladhara chakra, this is the element of earth. This is where we connect with the ground. So it's then Va is the genitals, associated with water element or the fluids of the body. Then there is Ra, fire, because of the heat of digestion. Ra. Then Ya, which is air, right? The chest. Feel the breath flowing outwards as you chant the beads. Ya. And then Ha, the throat. The throat is Akash, or kind of Akash ether, emptiness, because the trachea and the esophagus are both open passageways full of emptiness. So Ha, the phoneme Ha, actually is that of dissolution into emptiness. And Ha is also symbolic of inhalation. You know, one of the techniques in Bhairava is actually Hamsa. When you inhale, you chant internally Ha. And then when you exhale, you chant internally Sa. So Ha is here, the throat. And here, the focus is on the emptiness in the body, crossing of the void, the third eye chakra. Ha. Then, of course, third eye chakra, Agya chakra, is the Om Uchara. And then the silence that follows is when the Kundalini Shakti rises and leaves the body and becomes one with the objective world. And that is Sahasrara. So Kundalini Shakti is kind of like the Kundalini is always there within you. And she wants to get out of you. So unlike Western occultism or something, a lot of the times Western occultism, we're calling down divinities or deities to come and to bestow us their powers or their blessings. But in Kashmir Shaivism and in the heart of real Tantrism, the divinity exists within us and it's trying to exit our body. So we're trying to regurgitate it or vomit our inner divinity, Kundalini Shakti, from within us out into the universe, where we experience a oneness with objectivity. The process of inhalation, exhalation, inhalation, exhalation, inhalation, exhalation. It's like, okay, I'm subjective. Now I'm external. Exhale. Inhale, subjective. Exhale, objective. Inhale, subjective. Exhale, objective. Internal, external. Internal, external. This is called Krama Mudra. You're digesting the external world into the internal world, vomiting up internal world into the external world. But eventually, the Bhairava Mudra is experienced. And the Bhairava Mudra is when no difference exists any longer between external and internal world. It's burned away. That is Bhairava Mudra, and that is Samadhi state.
Okay. So basically, there's like one last question I would have to ask because I have to go soon, but there's like one question which really interests me. So there are two deities I personally heavily venerate in Hindu pantheon, and those are Bhairava and Kali specifically. And so while I was meditating, I was basically just chanting, and then I saw enormous amount of black/dark energy, and out of dark energy, which you don't have to like agree with what I heard or whatever. So came like a sentence. It was like a screaming, angry voice, which is like, whenever you start to venerate Shiva first, it is wrong. You have to venerate the Devi first because everything is awakened by her, like as if Kali or Devi is awakening all things. And if we venerate Shiva first and then Kali second, it's basically doesn't make sense for me at least, because in order to move, you have to wake up first. So Kali is basically the beginning of all rising, or that's at least how I interpreted whatever the voice said. Do you have like anything to say or to help me understand what was actually said, or did I just hallucinate? I'm interested in your thoughts on this matter.
There's 12 Kalis, right? And I cannot reveal all of the 12 Kalis, but I can give you the 3 different kinds of subcategories of Kalis. There is the objective Kalis. And when we activate these Kalis within us, these destroy the outside world. They dissolve the outside world, digest the outside world. And then there is the cognitive world by the next succession of 4 Kalis. And these devour the internal thinking process, or the mind. And then now the mind and impressions have been devoured, and then there is only left consciousness, or Atma is only left at this point. And then these last 4 Kalis even devour this until the state of Shiva is attained. So without thinking about it, we're always going through this process. We don't even need to like actively venerate Kali. But even Swami Lakshmanju says that the path is Shakti and that the endpoint is Shiva, right? The path that we're treading and the practices we're doing, this is Shakti. In the state of oneness, pure oneness with universality is Shiva. What you said is true for most people. Most people need to tread this path of Shakti, and they need to bow to their energies and awareness. And that is Kali, your awareness and your energies. Doing rituals and cultivating all of these. That is really the worship of Kali. But when this ceases, and when you've attained oneness, there's nothing left to do. And that is the state of Shiva. Kind of see that like Shakti is always rising, trying to become Shiva. And Shiva is the singularity, and Shiva is always going downwards, trying to become Shakti, trying to become individuals. And this is called Lila. It's a divine, eternal play or dance of contraction into individuality and expansion back into Shiva Bhava, the state of Shiva. For some people, instant, they become one with Lord Shiva. But for most people, they need to venerate Kali. And it can also be based on your astrology and on your birth and who your Ishtar Deva or Ishtar Devi is. Some people need to worship the goddess and do these rituals and go through the energies of the goddess in order to attain the state of Shiva. And very rare individuals, they can instantaneously achieve the state of Paramashiva.
Okay. So is there anything you want to say to our audience before we go? Or you want to talk about something?
Lakshmanju, if you're serious about Kashmir Shaivism, look into Swami Lakshmanju, go on to the Lakshmanju Academy, read the Secret Supreme Shiva Sutras, and read his books. But I begin with the Secret Supreme because this is a general introduction to Kashmir Shaivism. and attend the classes and the courses through Lakshmanju Academy, you can reach out to me on Facebook at my name, Bhairava Sadhaka, or on Instagram at Bhairava_Sadhaka. And I have many videos on there about Kashmir Shaivism and sadhana. And feel free to reach out for me to guide you to any resources or any further information to those who are sincere. And with that, I have to say, Ishvara Swarupa Puna Puna Namami Jai Swami Lakshmanju Maharaj Har Har Mahadev Jai Mahakal Jai Gurudev. Thank you for having me on.
Okay, so we have one last question for you today, Bhairava Sadhaka, and the question is reality as we see it illusory, or is just our perception of it false?
Reality is not an illusion, and our perception is not false either. Everything is of the body and of the expansion of the one being, Paramashiva. And because everything has come out from Paramashiva, everything is real. So the illusion is real as well. Illusion does not exist from the state of Kashmir Shivism. Maya is simply just the free will of Lord Shiva. There is no differentiation. Because if there was Maya, illusion, and if there was reality, then there would be duality. There'd be two. But Kashmir Shaivism comes from Bhairava Agamas, primarily, which teaches that there is only one being, Advaita. Therefore, there cannot be reality in illusion. Anything that appears to be illusory or ignorance or Maya is all authorized and is all the play of Lord Shiva. So it is real. And that perception is real. Every thought is real and the world is real. And it is of the body of Paramashiva.
Okay. And so, okay, so one last question. So you know that in Hindu Vedic cosmology, there are devas / deities, and then there are asuras / what would we call negative energies or negative forces. So what is your stance on asuras specifically, on that negative impulse?
Well,
How is that
asuras,
interpreted?
well, asuras is an expansion of Rudra Samhara, the destructive aspect of Paramashiva. And asura wants to cause pain unto innocent beings for their own pleasure. And this actually serves a very divine purpose. The asuras have populated the earth in the Kali Yuga. They maintain control over things. And although the asuras is doing this for selfish reasons, torturing or inflicting needless harm on other beings, they're actually cleansing our karmas. So it's the position of the asura. It may be hard to digest this, but when they inflict pain and suffering upon the world or upon others, they're just carrying out the divine will of God, which is to clean the karmas of those souls. And it actually brings us closer to our nature, which is Lord Shiva.
Okay. I need to say that this is exactly the explanation I found in like some really obscure tantric texts on why spiritual operations with intention to cause harm are allowed. So I'm really shocked by the fact that Kashmir Shaivism has similar position. Of course, I don't encourage anyone to do those things. I'm just saying that there is a place for those things
It's a
in the
similar position,
higher
but there's a difference though. Those with knowledge will not do harmful things. Those who have conceived of Paramashiva, they won't do harmful things on purpose. They won't willingly hurt other beings. Those without knowledge, like asuras, they have not the knowledge of Paramashiva, and that's why they act as asuras. So that's the difference. It is not authorized to do Pashubali and do these harmful things in Kashmir Shivism. In its truest, most pure sense, it's not. So there is a difference there.
Okay, okay. So I'm really glad to have you here again, and thank you for coming to our show. And spilling all of this amazing information for people to study. And
Yeah, no,
thank you once again, guys, and talk to you soon.